Smart 24, driving business.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to Fat Talks, another edition that we have every Thursday at 4 p.m. on Smart 24 and also on our Twitter spaces. Welcome. At Fat Talks is a product of FLI. FLI is a Fidelis Leadership Institute where we train leaders based on the values of faithful, available and teachable, the acronym with which the FAT Conversations is based on. At Fat Talks, we host conversations that are transformative, led by exceptional thought leaders across various sectors. Before we get into today, allow me to acknowledge you for tuning in on Smart 24, but also our Twitter Space X Spaces. We acknowledge you. Thank you for taking the time to be on call. Thank you, Eve. Eve is online. And as you, of course, you join us, please kindly let us know where your expectation from this conversation, but also where you are listening to us from. It will be a great conversation. Thank you for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, today's conversation. First of all, Apple, even at Fidelis, our theme for April is Health Matters. And globally, April is an Autism Awareness Month. Today's topic, today's theme is all-inclusive education community, an all-inclusive education community. Today's feature is we're looking at a special needs edition. And of course, we have a very good thought leader in that space that is going to take us on a journey of what we call an awareness of what diversity and inclusion is all about. Yes, at Fidelis again, we are supporters and yes, we are rooters of diversity and inclusion. And it is important to us because such conversations need to be had on the rise of globalization. It is very important for you and I to be able to work or live in a community where we know that we can be able to accommodate different cultures, different social groups. So very well, I encourage you, if you haven't yet had that conversation at your workplace, at home, to join in here and let us have a start to that conversation that you can introduce to your home, to your community, and more so in the areas in the marketplaces that we are every day. So that it sets up each one of us in our different capacities, different cultures, the different social groups that we believe, helps us flourish. So I need us to have that conversation, and yes, we thought it should be very important to have that conversation so that we are allowed to create that space for teams to have that discussion, to ask questions, to listen in, thought-provoking questions that will allow people, all of us, to enjoy the same space with our different differences. So today, ladies and gentlemen, on Smart 24 and again on our X Spaces, if you've just joined us, we have a special guest, a thought leader, and I'm going to introduce her. But mostly, I'll allow her to speak and introduce herself because if I started to introduce her, probably we'll be here the whole day. So ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce our guest for today, Madame Brenda Kavivi. You're very welcome to Fat Talks.
Thank you, Evelyn.
It's good to have you.
For having me.
Yeah, it's very good to have you.
And privileged to be here.
Beautiful. How are you?
I'm good.
How was your day?
Fine, very well. And yours?
Great. How's the week?
It's all right.
It's okay?
Yes.
It's a privilege for us to honor and have you here at Fat Talks. Again, Fat Talks, for those that have just joined us, we host thought leaders. Maybe you also may not know. So while you're here, you're a thought leader in this space. that are based on the values that Fat Talks depends on: faithful, available, and teachable. So we know that as we're speaking, as we're having this conversation, we believe that you've represented that. You've been faithful to your call, you've been available to teach and to be taught. So we are believing that, and of course, we're going to prove this through this conversation.
I can't wait.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here.
You're welcome,
So
and
just
thank you.
briefly, tell us, who are you? Whom are we looking at? What's just, maybe I missed your full names, where you come from. Tell us about your family. What would you like just to share with us who you are?
Okay. Thank you once again. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brenda Kabibi. I am a mother to two, and one of whom is a child with special needs. She's on the autism spectrum. And then I have another one who's 6 years old, and the older one is the younger one almost 6, and the older one almost 13, just a few months to celebrate our birthdays.
Wow.
And and here I am as an autism mother and advocate for this discussion.
Beautiful.
Yes.
We like it. So you have no boys, or you've forgotten
Not
the
just
boys?
a girl mom.
Anyway, it's very nice to have you for sure.
Thank you.
So the two, just let us know what you like about each of these children. What stands out for you? What do they do that makes you melt as a mother? You'll be like, I'm almost arriving.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't even think we would have enough time, but I love being a mother.
Yeah.
My children really light up my life. My children are my greatest blessing and probably my biggest calling. That's something I consider my biggest calling.
Yeah.
My older one, she gives me so much strength. She brings me so much joy. She just, yeah.
Melts your heart.
She melts my heart. Oh my God.
Yeah.
She melts my heart with how strong she is and how she's overcome so many challenges on her journey as a child with living with autism. How she's just so full of life.
Great.
Yes.
Nice.
And the younger one is, oh my God, so much energy. When you have a child who has a disability and then you have another one, it's a different kind of energy. And then you have another one who doesn't have a disability. It's a different kind of energy. So the younger one has that fireball energy. So
Wow.
she keeps me on my toes.
She keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, she does.
That's nice. Feels like pressure for the bigger one.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I like that we're having this conversation, and I'm liking that we're having it with you. Tell us about that child. Her condition. What's her name? Yeah.
Her name is Zion.
Yeah.
And Zion will be 13 towards the end of this year. She'll be 13. So yeah, I'll be a teen mom.
Whoa.
I'll be a mom to a teenager.
Excited,
I'm
anxious.
excited. It's been a long journey. She has autism and she's completely nonverbal, which means she's not able to utter any words.
Okay.
But she fully comprehends everything around her. Being nonverbal doesn't mean you don't understand. So she completely understands everything around her.
Maybe before you can continue, for the viewers and those listening to us on X Spaces, just break it down for us. When you say she has autism, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Autism is a neurological condition.
Okay.
I know that so many people out there think autism is a mental illness or that autism is a disease. It's not a disease. Autism is a neurological condition that really just causes the child to have some impairment in comprehension and coordination. And, it's evident in their behavioral patterns, but it's nothing to do with mental illness. It's nothing to do with I don't even know how I can call it, but I know that many people think it's a disease. No, it's not a disease. It's a neurological condition. So what that means is that this child's brain is perfectly fine. It's very normal, just like yours and mine. The only difference is that she comprehends things differently, and she has her learning challenges. So that's the only difference. Okay. So usually hardware, let's say, I usually call it hardware. So the hardware of the brain is perfectly fine. It's the software now that is, that's impaired.
Okay.
Let me use that.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm thinking about it. She's the firstborn, right?
Yes.
At what point did you figure this out? And at what point did you label, allow me to use the word label, the condition, autism? Just take us through that journey. You give birth, everything was okay.
Yes.
And first day, second day, you're making 13 years. So along that journey, when did we think this is it? So just to encourage and to speak to mothers, you know, sometimes there are things that we see or not see, or somebody sees and they're trying to help you on that journey, but because now your story should help us go in that direction. How did you unveil? At what point did you think this was something I need to label or look into in that direction?
So in the beginning, everything was fine. I had a very perfectly healthy baby. Very
Pregnancy
happy.
was okay.
Everything was okay, apart from high blood pressure, really,
Okay.
which is not uncommon in pregnancy.
Yes.
Everything was fine. Born full term, feeding very well, like, you know, yeah, a very peaceful baby.
Yeah.
But I started to notice just about maybe when she almost made 1 year, I noticed from the fact that when you called her, she didn't seem to respond. Because normally before the child is 1 year, when you say their name, they can hear. They may not respond verbally, but they can hear. They can respond, you know, by looking in your direction if you're calling them. She wasn't able to do that. She wasn't crawling by the time she was 1 year. She sat at the right time, she did. But by the time she was 1 year, there were some milestones that we were supposed to hit that were just slow. So she wasn't crawling by then, she was just dragging herself. But then again, some children don't crawl.
That happens.
That happens. It wasn't anything that I needed to worry about. She wasn't standing, but again, some children
that happens.
Take longer to walk. And yeah,
so the whole first year was all clean.
The first year was okay.
Feeding,
she was feeding perfectly well. She had started to, you know, mumble some words.
Okay.
She had started to mumble some words, but she wasn't saying mama, she wasn't saying mommy. But again, it's not unusual for a child to not be able to speak by the time they are 1 year. So then time went on into now we're getting into the second year. Somewhere around 1.5, she starts to crawl. And even her crawling by then, she was really just dragging her belly. But we've seen babies do that, you know, dragging their belly. And she was struggling to stand. So I decided to see a doctor. She would have, I don't want to call them tantrums. She would have, and I don't even want to use outbursts. I don't even know, meltdowns. Meltdowns, that's the word. She would have meltdowns sometimes for no reason at all. She's fed, she's okay, she's fine, but she's having meltdowns and I don't even know why. So, and again, it's not unusual. Babies cry and have severe meltdowns. So because of her delayed milestones, I sought the expertise of a certain doctor.
Okay.
A neurological doctor. I think it was Dr. Biarugaba at the time. And, you know, he told me I should wait until she's almost 2. Until she's almost 2. This is 1 year and a half. He said if she's at 1 year and 10 months, if she's not walking by then, you can come back. So I went back at 1 year and 10 months and still she wasn't walking. But and at that time, he said it was global delayed development. She was just taking a little longer to hit her milestones. And he did give me hope that she's going to walk because her muscle tone was perfectly fine, which means she was going to walk anyway. So at 2 years, there's still no speech and time goes on. And at 2 years, he encourages me to start therapy. So we start physiotherapy, a bit of speech therapy and occupational therapy just to get her, you know, to beat her milestones sooner. Okay. So we did all these therapies and she still wasn't walking. I think it's about at 3 years that he told me, okay, I think now this is mild autism. Mild, yeah, he said it was mild autism. So at 3 years, we continue the journey of therapy, and still we are meeting milestones, but really slowly. I think the walking, she stood for a very long time, but she couldn't take independent steps. So for sure, at the age of 4 years is where I was certain that this is not even mild autism, this is autism.
Wow.
So it's at 4 years that I was certain that this is autism.
Okay.
And so now I needed to dress up for that journey.
Okay. I want to believe that certain comes from you engaging with your doctor. It was that process of back and forth, and both of you agreeing this is really not mild anymore, but really concrete autism, right? Now I can imagine also the quality pressure from the community, because now the child is 4, they should probably be in school of some sort. How did that play out with you?
As expected, at 3 years, I decided to enroll her in a school, but then it wasn't supporting her. And I can almost understand, because I still wasn't certain that it was autism. It was just delayed development. So we worked with playgroup, and from there we went to a number of schools. Actually, we went to a number of centers and schools, just trying to figure out what kind of education she would need.
Okay.
And I've been to so many schools.
So many.
Yeah, I have.
Without mentioning names, how was that experience? Was it the fact that they would say maybe this will be, or was it you thinking this will not work for my child, or was it the other side saying I will not be able to handle this? How was that journey?
I think I have had almost every experience there is with schools. Some were good, some were really bad. There are schools I went to and we were outrightly rejected. There are schools that will tell you, oh, this child is too autistic. Oh, how autistic is your child? You need to bring them in so we can, you know, we can understand how autistic they are. There are schools that were honest that, you know, they couldn't, their facilities couldn't support the child. There were schools that that were kind to walk this journey with us and just you know, keep her in play group and just so she's not socially isolated. And there were schools where we paid, but they just kept her with the gardeners or the cooks at the school because they didn't think she was fit to be in class. And because she's nonverbal, I wasn't able to get that kind of report. You know, like how, for example, my youngest will tell me everything about school, but my oldest will not tell me. I wouldn't even know what was going on at school. So my biggest problem with some schools was accountability. Having a nonverbal child, you won't even know what's going on. So I struggled in the area of accountability. I struggled in the area of you know, just caring for her in school and supporting her to be able to reach her milestones.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have along the journey, again, she's not able to talk, so you had like a teacher who's able to give you feedback, you know, the struggle of trying to understand and then letting the teacher know, please, every day let me have some feedback, you know, that kind of thing. So did you get to that level?
Yes, I did, because you build relationships with some teachers who are willing to support you, who are kind enough to share some, you know, good news. Today she was able to play with another child. Today she was able to respond to her name, you know. So yes, along the way I met some teachers who were really working hard to support us on this journey.
Beautiful.
I did.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've just joined us through Smart 24 or X Spaces, we are having a conversation on inclusive education community. Today's feature, the special needs edition. I'd like to acknowledge those that are on X Spaces. Miss Judith Carrara, welcome. Thanks for taking the time to listen in to our conversation today. And somebody called Baby Shy. You are very welcome to this space and to the conversation. How can you contribute? Just let us know by comment, by question, or perhaps your condition, experience. Let us know how you can contribute to this conversation as we move, as Madame Brenda, our guest and thought leader for the day, takes us on this journey. April is awareness, autism awareness. So we are trying to get deeper into what is autism and what is it, the experience of the mother. How is that journey? And that is what our thought leader today is taking us through. So welcome again, and please share your thoughts and let us join in this conversation. Now, as you are speaking, I know as Ugandans or Africans or wherever we come from, we always have help at home. Some people call them house managers, people call them what you choose to call them. I don't want to imagine how that journey was like for you, because I want to imagine you have perhaps work that had to keep you away from the baby once in a while, or perhaps all day. How was that journey been? What's the support at home? Especially for the first days when you realize, okay, this is mild autism, but I need to be working, whether a business, whether whatever market space that you were at that time. How was the looking out for the house manager or the help or the support to be able for you to be able to be away, knowing that this is you, you know your child to detail, but someone else from 9 to 5, I'm away. How was the search experience or the maintenance experience?
So for I think I'll just generally speak on the support. I am blessed to come from a family that is very loving and just very, very kind. So I don't take that for granted. My family has been very supportive right from the start. They've been a part of my journey, even in their not knowing, because even I didn't know anything. So my family has been really supportive, trying to ask the right questions, trying to learn along with me, ask how they can support me. You know, just showing love and acceptance for my daughter is everything. Now, on the other hand, I've always been a working mother, and it's hard. It's hard. It's just so hard to work and focus and be productive when you have a child with a disability. I struggle to find support at home. Most times I need to be away to work. But even finding the right help is hard. If people can, you know, even people who are close to you can discriminate against your child. Now imagine a total stranger who is a nanny. So I've struggled a lot in that area, finding the right support to take care of my child when I am at work. And it impacts me a lot in my productivity. It takes a toll on your mental health, you know. It's just not easy to find people who love and accept your child, especially when they're living with a disability. Yes. Wow,
what a journey in a way. She's making 13 this year.
She's making 13.
What a job. Well done.
Thank you.
Why? Again, why we're having this conversation is when we are aware, or if you've had someone else's story, you can relate, and you can also settle in the fact that I can, one, support a mother who is like that, or who's going through the same experience, or in the incident that just happens to me as well, I'm aware and I'm able to support my child, but also mentally be alert, so that I'm settled, to know that this is a normal thing that I have to go through. But mostly, it helps us be more inclusive for all other issues, not just autism, but the different things that occur to us, not by choice. It could be culture, it could be the way I look. Anyway, just take us through the fact that eventually, what did you decide? Because I imagine you did the schools through, and now where are we? What are we? So by 10, where are we?
I continued with home-based therapies. I worked with a number of therapists in
How did you get to home-based therapy?
How did I get to home-based therapy?
You Googled?
Oh yeah, so I did schools, a number of schools, both special needs schools and the inclusive schools and the ordinary schools. I did every kind of school that you can imagine. I researched, I read. Eventually, I met up. I cannot even remember how I found the courage to go to the faculty of special needs education in Chambogo, because I had heard that they have a faculty of special needs education.
I was about to say, how did you?
Actually, initially, when I went to that faculty, I thought I would enroll for a course in special needs education, so
support.
I can support my
Okay.
child.
Yeah.
So when I got there, I remember meeting a wonderful gentleman who was at the head of the faculty at that time, called Dr. Njuchi.
Oh.
So I met Dr. Njuchi, and I shared with him how I wanted to enroll for classes, and somehow as we go to talking over time, we decided to have a meeting with my daughter so he could assess her educational needs, because that was his specialty.
Wow.
You know, because I was saying I'm struggling to find information for children with special needs, find the right school, even just finding the right therapist was difficult. I was doing therapies I probably didn't need at that time, or that I didn't urgently, I didn't urgently need.
Yes.
So I just thought going to school and studying the course would get me the right answers.
Exactly.
So we set up a meeting for educational assessment, and I remember one of the things after he had assessed my daughter, I think it was 2 meetings. He asked me some really difficult questions that led me to the decision of home-based therapy.
Wow.
So you see, my daughter is I would say severely autistic. She's completely nonverbal.
Okay.
So some of the tough questions he asked me were, okay, so do you think your daughter is ever going to get a job? Is she ever going to do school and then maybe become a lawyer or a doctor? And no, my daughter was completely nonverbal. She couldn't hold a spoon in her hands.
Yeah.
She couldn't walk. Well, she had just learned how to walk, because she learned how to walk when she was 5 years old. So like I told you earlier, I was carrying a big baby for 5 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Carrying her, like, you know, on my hip.
Literally on you.
Yes. So when we had this conversation, he led me to understand what her educational needs were, and her educational needs were not necessarily academic. She was not going to color, she was not going to write essays, she was not going to go to law school, she was not going to learn to drive a car, you know. Her educational needs were completely different, and he opened my eyes to the fact that I needed to focus on what's important for her, and what's important for her was self-care, and continues to be self-care and independence.
Wow.
So that's how we came to home-based therapy, to be able to help her live an independent life.
Okay.
She needs to learn to feed herself.
Okay.
She needs to learn to go to the toilet on her own. She needs to learn to take a shower on her own. One of the most difficult questions this Dr. Njuchi asked me was, what would happen if your life was cut short now? And even saying it out loud,
That's a tough question.
it still shocks me.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the toughest questions that led me to choose home-based therapy, because what would happen actually if my life was cut short? Would my daughter know how to ask for food? Would she know how to, use the bathroom? Would she know how to relate with other people? I see so many children on the street, and some of them people are calling them mad, but I imagine that there must be a special needs child whose mother is no longer there.
Yes.
And we are calling them mad. So he led me to the decision of home-based therapy, because he said, your daughter needs to learn to live life with or without you. Wow. That's what's important. She doesn't need to learn ABC, because she never will. She never will. She's not cut out for academics. She's never going to learn to sing nursery rhymes, because she's completely nonverbal.
Yeah.
She's not going to have dreams of becoming a lawyer, because she's just never going to go to law school or be a doctor. So yeah, that's how we came to the decision, a very difficult decision, but yet the best decision I have ever made.
Oh, beautiful.
So he made me realize what's important, and what's important is not my daughter excelling in academics, because she will not. She's not cut out for academics. I needed to focus on getting her to take care of herself and just live a life of independence.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Which is for all of us anyway, right?
In a way,
In a way.
We learn to be, even when you're raising kids, you're trying to make sure that we are growing them onto that independent kind of journey.
Yes.
So at the end of it, it becomes very important.
Yeah.
If a
It
child...
didn't make sense for me to focus on teaching her to learn nursery rhymes, or how to color, or ABC. I'm not saying they're not important, they really are, but they're
right
not for
now,
every child.
the priority
So what's the
was-
point of knowing A, B, C, and you can't hold a spoon, and you can't put on your shoes, or you can't dress yourself up, or just even hold a glass or cup to feed yourself.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds really nice. Before we walked in here, I saw a photo of her with a swimming attire.
Yes.
Is that one of her outstanding, or among many? Or
I think.
Tell us about that. How did you get to that swimming? Have we been in the special home care? Is it that you've introduced her to several activities and that was one of them? How is the special care being done? How did we learn on swimming?
So she's a very good swimmer. I'm so proud of her.
Wow.
I'm so proud of her.
Yeah.
You won't believe that that's the one thing she excels at.
Okay.
She's not even able to comb her own hair, but she swims in the deep end.
How did we get there?
And she's excelled at that one.
Did you hang out a lot around swimming pools?
Yes,
and you're like, let's try this out?
When she used to get sensory overloads, one of the things that used to calm her was water, you know. So we used to go to the pool most weekends, and I noticed that she loved to play. It calmed her down. She slept better whenever she went swimming. But of course, she was just in the pool floating around. It's not that she was swimming. So a number of times I did dream of her being able to swim on her own, so I don't have to get in the water with her or worry that she's going to drown or would have any issues. And that was also difficult because a very good number of swimming coaches actually said that she would never be able to swim. They said they could never train a child who is nonverbal, and for sure I understood. Like there was just no way. She wasn't even, I think she had just learned how to walk, maybe 2 years. Okay. So one time I met a swimming coach at the pool, and you know, he just said casually, you know,
by this time you had already figured it out, it was a mild autism?
No, by then I was, this is after 4, because she learned how to swim at how old was she? This is 20, I think this is 2020.
Wow.
Had been swimming, but just floating around in the pool, like water play.
It was helping calming her.
Yes, so for all these years we had been
just hanging out at
the pool in floaters and just chilling. But in 2020 I met a gentleman at the pool who is a swimming coach, and he encouraged me to bring her so she could learn how to swim. Wow. And I mean by this time I was sure he's joking, because there's no way she was ever going to learn how to swim.
Because several had already
told me, and they were experts. They were the best swimming coaches, by the way.
Yes.
So yeah, they spoke with authority that she would not be able to learn how to swim. She would just keep floating around. So this gentleman tells me a number of times that he was able to train her. So one time I thought, you know, let's try, let's see, surprise me. But I was like, how is she going to learn? And to my surprise, she learned how to swim in I think before the lockdown, she learned how to swim halfway the pool. At first it was quarter way, then halfway the pool. But when we opened, then again in lockdown, in the 42-day lockdown, when we resumed, when public places were open and children could go back swimming, she actually learned how to swim in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, in 2 weeks. It was just 2 weeks in the 42-day lockdown that she started to swim, and she did it so well. And by the time the 42-day lockdown was done, she was excellent. Wow. Yeah, and we didn't even go back. That was it in the 42-day lockdown. That's it. She learned how to swim, and that was it. Wow. Yeah.
Do you ever feel like there are other places you could hang out? Because ladies and gentlemen that have just joined us on Smart 24 and X Spaces, you found us in a discussion trying to understand what autism is, because it is April Autism Awareness Month. How you ended up at the swimming pool. I liked it because you mentioned that you had just gone there because the water is what was
calm her down.
Calm down.
Yeah.
I want you to repeat that almost, because a lot of times that's like divine leading, you know, like how did you end up here? What if I hadn't, you know? Yeah. How did you even figure out that water is what calmed her down?
I was constantly reading, Evelyn.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever stopped reading about autism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything I know about autism, I have learned on the job. I have learned from the internet.
Yeah.
I did share with you that from the time I confirmed for sure that my daughter had autism, at that time, we're talking 10 years ago, I didn't know anybody with autism.
Yes.
I didn't know any family that had a
Community.
child with autism. Other disabilities that, there are those I knew who had other disabilities, but I didn't know for sure personally anyone who could take me through this journey. So everything I know, I went to the internet, I Googled, I read, I researched, I continue to do, and yeah, you just
led
figure
you
it
there.
out. It
Yeah,
led me.
it
It led me to so
website,
many
led
things
you,
that didn't make sense, that I didn't
at
even
that
need.
time.
But it also led me to some places that were right for us.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Wow, I like it. Wow, what a beautiful story. You have been so intentional, you have been so, while all this is happening, how have you managed to, I don't use the word balance, but the work that you are doing, or you are doing now, how have you been able to balance it out? Because I would want to imagine that during that time when you found it out, you realized maybe you needed to have some more time with the child, with the struggle of trying to find schools, and then you get home, schooling. Were you working? Were you full-time mom? How did you balance that out?
I was in formal employment.
Did you make some
previously.
decisions? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was in formal employment in the beginning, right after school, and eventually had that child, and eventually left. I didn't leave my formal job because of the child. I left for completely other reasons. But while I started the journey of self-employment, I realized that it's a model that would work for me and my daughter.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, with everything that we have been through over the last years, I cannot imagine that there is an organization in this country that would be compassionate enough to accommodate me, honestly. The number of times I have to be off to take care of her, I can't imagine any employer would be that empathetic. There are times it stretches on to weeks, there are times it stretches on to a month, you know, just trying to care for her, trying to support her. So in terms of work and, you know, caring for her,
exactly, balancing it out and all.
there's really not that work-life balance is a myth.
It's a myth.
It's a myth. No, to be honest, my daughter will come first. If my daughter needs me, my daughter will come first. Not even my work will come first. And that's why sometimes work will struggle, because I will choose my daughter any day if she needs me. If there's no one to care for her, I will not show up to work. You know, if she's struggling health-wise, I will not show up to work. I don't even want to tell you that my work, no, I will not show up. I'm sorry.
That's for sure.
So I've had to make some choices. I do. I've had to make some choices to slow down just to be there for her, especially now that she's growing into her teen years.
Wow.
I've had to slow down.
This is us coming from 2 to 4 and all the way. Wow. Well done.
And just help her through the transition, you know. It's like your ordinary teenager. It's like your ordinary teenager. These days she's more withdrawn. She used to be very bubbly. She used to be very hyper. But lately she's behaving like a real teen. She's quiet. She's quiet. So I'm to be present for this journey as she transitions into her teen years. I really don't know what to expect. I don't.
Being available is what you can do.
So I am more present. I'm slowing down on so many other things and putting her first to help the, you know, the caregivers at home to be able to make her comfortable. There are a number of conversations we are having now as she's going into her teen years. I'm not having them with her, but I'm having them with the carers. So I need my eyes on her now more than ever.
I like it.
So I've had to make some choices. Yes.
Wow. It's good to understand, ladies and gentlemen, those who are on Smart 24, welcome. And of course, X Spaces. It's good to understand that this growth, in a way, what you're describing is it's a normal child, and you're taking extra care on a number of things depending on. Now, what we're talking about previously was the uniqueness, because autism as an awareness month, April, you mentioned that it's not a standard, there's no standard manual, there's not a standard character, it is various, it's in a way, it is very different for different people. Yes. How would you just speak about that?
So autism is a spectrum, and it does it, so one child and the second child and the third to the end of the spectrum are not the same. They will probably share certain symptoms. Yeah. They will exhibit, one child might exhibit symptoms that another child will not. Okay. For example, my daughter is completely nonverbal, but there'll be other children who are verbal and autistic. Okay? There'll be other children that are verbal but maybe have echolalia. I don't know if you've met children that are repeating the same word over and over again, like, you know, days on the same words and the same statements. So I have my very good friend, also an autism mom, has a very good way of putting it. She says, when you have met one child with autism, you have met one child. You've not met all of them. No, it's not like generalize. If you, no, it's not like some other conditions. When you meet one, that's how all of them are. So when you meet one child with autism, you only met one child with autism. They're not all the same. Wow. Yeah, some have repetitive behavioral patterns. Others isolate themselves a lot. You know, they are, how do I put it? People like to say antisocial. But anyway,
introverted in a way?
It's not even introverted, but they are, they struggle with socializing, and others don't. So it's completely different.
It's different for everyone.
Yeah, but one thing that they all have in common is their behavioral patterns. Yeah.
Wow, I like it. I hope you're liking the conversation. Welcome again if you've just joined us. Now, Madam Brenda, after your experience in school, then at the hospital, now home, and your research, you just give me a PhD.
You should. I have a PhD. Studying for a PhD in autism.
Okay, right. Why not? Yeah. Why don't you just share with us what are because the reason why we're having this conversation is one to speak up on areas of being inclusive and all these aspects. Now, today we are talking about autism. Tomorrow it could be something else. Yes. Yeah. And the more we include these people in our education communities, the more they flourish because they are normal people, just separate giftings and people that have different gifts that have to support them.
Yes.
So we are trying to encourage the masses and you out there who's probably in the same situation to be a part of this conversation and to also know that we are being thoughtful and we are trying to encourage people to be very adaptive.
Yes.
Yeah. In your good 1 or 2, 3 words or statements, how would you speak into this? What are some successful models you think in your walk of life? So far your child is making 13.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole decade of life with your child. The successful models of inclusive education, how can we be more? What are those things that we can do that can allow inclusiveness of such distinct, unique conditions in Uganda right now? Or in our environment, or your neighbor school that probably may have said no at the beginning. Yeah. So
everything about whatever model I'll speak about really is based on love and acceptance. Just love and acceptance. There are so many models that are used in Uganda. Maybe some of you don't know about them. Or maybe they're not even well implemented. You know, people are not aware that they are available.
Awareness.
Yeah, or maybe they could be tweaked and made better.
Okay.
So there are so many models when it comes to inclusive education. For example, we have assistive methods these days. You're in tech, and there are assistive devices
tools,
that help and tools that actually help children to learn to communicate, learn to express themselves. there are a good number of them.
Beautiful.
Not so common here in Uganda. I think very popular in the US. But some of the models here in Uganda that are available to us are things like...
For example, currently, how are you able to communicate with your child?
I speak to her. She may not respond to me verbally, but she understands. She comprehends perfectly. So for us, it's more functional communication. But for schools, how you can include children with special needs, include assistive methods. You know, they are teaching assistants. They don't even have to be gadgets. It could be teaching assistants.
Skilling,
Yes. Teaching assistants, training the teachers that you have. You may not notice that one child has a learning challenge, but yet they are in a school. But if the teacher is trained, they'll be able to identify it and be able to, you know, start on some early intervention. UNEP these days has provided, I think, scribes. I don't know if you're aware of that. Scribes and the ones who are called readers, I think. There are some children who struggle with reading, so there's someone who will be reading to them while they're doing the exam, and then they can focus on writing the answers. But you have to apply for it, I think, early. Then there are also scribes. There are children who struggle with writing, so someone will read to them. They'll be able to. The other way around, So the scribes and the readers. So there'll be those who assist them with reading, and there'll be those who assist them with writing. We also have audiovisual methods. I mean, some children, even when they're not necessarily on the spectrum, can benefit better with audiovisual methods. Also including things like audiobooks. I can imagine, and I'm not only speaking for autism, also other disabilities. You know, a child who struggles to read, I can't imagine if they're about to do their S4 exam and they have to read an entire literature novel. And yet we have audiobooks, you know. Start to include some of these things in our classes, you know, to help the children be able to be a part of and flourish. Anyway. There's so many others. Braille for the blind. Have you experienced any of these? Have you utilized any of these? Or no, I haven't. It's a bit far-fetched. So most of them don't apply to my child, but I have seen other children benefit from having someone who actually helps them with writing, to be able to make sure that they're accurate when they write, the spelling check. So they don't apply to my daughter for the time she was in school, but I have seen them work. There's so many models, by the way. Braille. Awareness, I think, like you mentioned, we need to be aware so that we apply accordingly, which is what you're helping us to today. Again, good to have you here. Now, just one more thought. Okay, maybe just a little gap there. How is she able to communicate back to you once you have communicated to her? Does she write? Do you read? Or is that part of what the support at home is helping her? I think we have built language without words. Many times we think communication is words. We've built language for her. She will communicate. She'll communicate. You can read. I don't even know how to tell you, but I can speak to her and I know what she needs. I mean, the longer you spend with her, you just learn, you know. It's like your ordinary 6-month-old baby. You can tell when they're hungry, why she's crying, why, you know, if she's hungry or needs her their diaper changed. So with my daughter, we've just built language that doesn't involve words. So I can tell when she's hungry. She can tell me when she's hungry. I mean, if she's trying to open the fridge, if she's trying to pick up plates and cups, that's it. What more do you need to know? She's hungry. When a child picks up a plate or a cup, that means they're hungry. Through expression and body language. Yes, body language. So there are so many ways to communicate without words. Again, for someone out there maybe wondering how you can support your child in that nature, these are very interesting insights for all of us to be able to support one another on this journey, right? I think the more
when you look back, you must feel like if I had more support, or now the mother now, maybe,
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah,
always
it would
out
have
to
been
support
easier.
whoever is going
Yeah,
through the same.
I do.
Just make it a bit easier for them, right? Yeah, that's what you're doing here.
Giving them the information I didn't have at that time.
Empowerment and all, yes.
Because the information I have now has enabled me make these decisions now. Maybe if I had started earlier, it would have been different.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. What strategies can be employed to foster friendships and social inclusions for children with disabilities? What strategies in that way?
Oh, there are so many.
Okay.
Training.
Okay.
For various establishments. Train your staff. You know, educate yourself. There's no excuse in this day and age for being ignorant. If you have a co-worker, let me use that example, who has a child with a disability, you think it doesn't affect you, but it would mean the world if you educate yourself and your other colleagues in your workplace. Get to know what affects her, you know, understand this condition. For teachers, train the teachers. For doctors, you won't believe it, we have doctors who still don't understand what autism is. You'd be so surprised. Because autism is not something you can do a blood test, actually, and know. You can't know when you're pregnant, so it's very important that training continues. And this is continuous, it doesn't stop, you know. I don't know everything about autism, but I keep learning every day, I keep learning. Provide opportunities. Provide opportunities. I've heard of a certain cafe in Ginger called Skia, I think, that employs, it's a sign language cafe. So all the employees, all the waiters and waitresses actually have hearing impairments. So they use sign language. So imagine really they're providing them, that's inclusion. They're providing them opportunities to be able to learn, to be able to show what they can do, to be able to grow. Also using inclusive language. Some of us in this day and age are still calling children Zolo, Kasiru. You know, that language that is demeaning, that language that puts a child down, that language that is so hurtful. That's the language. So be careful what language you're using, because that's one of the reasons we struggle with social engagement, because you're at a play area and people are calling your child Kasiru, and people are calling your child Zolo, like, or retarded, words like this that we throw around casually, like retarded, you know. Use inclusive language. Accessibility. Okay. Accessibility is also very important. There are some establishments, and again, like I said, I'm not only speaking for autism. Exactly. I'm speaking for all other disabilities, because I belong to a community of children with disabilities, or families of children with disabilities. Accessibility is very important. You're putting up structures where you're socially isolating the child because they cannot access. Let's say a child who needs a wheelchair cannot access a certain building or certain services because you have not provided for them. You know? Recently I saw a place in Masaka, a very popular place called Jalia, and Jalia really warmed my heart. Because outside the restaurant, there's a little tent marked special needs, and I think there are about 2 or 3 wheelchairs. How considerate, you know. Even simple things like a toilet for the handicapped, physically handicapped, is very important. Even things like parking, you know. So there are places that are doing their best currently in Kampala, actually, to create a more inclusive environment. A more inclusive. But there are those who are absolutely doing nothing, and I think it's about time that you make things accessible for all children with special needs or persons with disabilities. You know, apart from skills training and development. There are so many things that you can do, but most importantly, love and acceptance. Most importantly, educating yourself. It's not my job to educate you, because I am doing my part. But you must take this upon yourself to educate yourself, because we live with children with disabilities everywhere, with persons with disabilities everywhere. all around us. So it's very important that you make everyone feel welcome and comfortable and accepted. Educate yourself. Also, let's build a culture of empathy, of compassion. I think that's also the best way. We can start from there. As we get to acceptance, we can start from empathy and compassion. You know, if you're in a place and there are long lines, and I've struggled in the past with, again, that was before I was able to speak out. I'd stand in long lines with my daughter, with no help, with no, you know, and sometimes the children cannot stand those lines. They get restless, they get meltdowns, there is a lot of sensory overload. So I struggled in the past. But there are some places I'm seeing these days creating queues for children with special needs, you know, but also the person at the counter. When someone comes with a child with special needs, don't be asking what disability do they have. I mean, and you know, Ugandans, they'll ask you that. They'll say, why are you in this line? Thinking you're just trying to cut lines. But not all disabilities are physical. Not all of them. Some are neurological.
It's awareness.
It's awareness. Please educate yourself. Don't stop educating yourself. Support your friends, support your families who you know have children with special needs. Don't discriminate.
For sure.
I mean, that is the reason you hear stories of people, families that are talked about, that they lock up their children. But in reality, no. They have faced discrimination. That keeps them, keeps them, you know, keeps their children at home. So how are we going to foster friendships, you know, if you're not teaching your child? Some people have neighbors. They don't let their children play with the neighbor's special needs child. You know?
Well, you're on that point. How have you helped the younger daughter to be able to be accommodative, understand what's happening? Because that really will nail it I think for most of us, where we are speaking to the communities out there. I like that you've been able to raise these two differently. So just speak to us on how you've been able to raise her in a way that she's accommodative with her sister and supportive, and I'm sure you've watched their journey along the way. She may be a little much younger, but there must be some signs that you can celebrate. As we draw this to a close, ladies and gentlemen, that would be a good way to really nail it down.
Parenting for the both of them hasn't been so different, actually. To me, it feels the same. It's just that there is more emphasis in caring, and that's mostly physically, the physical care, whereas the other one is independent and can manage several tasks on her own. Just talking to her. I'm doing my part to teach her to be empathetic towards her sister and understand that she's like any other child. It's just that she has some learning challenges. She may not learn as fast as she's learning. Teaching her to socialize with her, but again also extending her grace. She's 5. She's fast, you know. So sometimes she's bored and the other one is slow, you know. Some days she goes, I mean, she's learning. I know it won't always be like that. I know she's a lovely girl with a very big heart. I know that she would never treat her sister differently, but again, she's 5. But I'm teaching her to be compassionate. I'm teaching her to support her sister. Most importantly, I am teaching her that when she finds other children with special needs, she should recognize them, you know. She should be kind. She should speak to them in a certain way. She should be compassionate. And again, that's what I'm saying about all other families. It starts with teaching your young ones to be kind to the other children.
It starts at home, actually.
It starts at home. So I'm trying. We're getting there.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a conversation. Thank you for joining us. We want to draw this to a close. And indeed, what we've been sharing here, Madam Brenda Kabibi, we thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you for having
It's been
me.
an honor. I feel so empowered. You know, I feel
glad.
there's so much information. You taking the time to do research and empowering yourself so that you're able to be there for not only just your children or your child, but the entire community, right? And now you being here and taking your time to speak to us and to diversity and inclusion. We appreciate it. So
Thank
applause.
you.
Those who are on Twitter, Expressions, please applaud our thought leader for the day, and you joined us on Smart 24. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, why are we having this conversation, or why did we just have this conversation? With the rise of globalization, it's more important to be able to work or live with people from different cultures or social groups. If you and I, your workmate or in the community, are exposed to these conversations, like she says, like Brenda says, we'll be able to, awareness helps us to flourish. Awareness helps us to support those in our community. Stigma. Awareness helps us to kill stigma, like you have mentioned. So I hope you've been empowered today, and I hope you leave a comment when you come back to listen to this, and I hope you've had a great time in this conversation. So go out there and be empowered to support diversity and inclusion in your lifestyle today. Thank you, Madam Brenda.
Thank you, Evelyn.
And thank you, viewers and listeners, for being a part of us.